After the chaos of Squid Game Season 2, what if the nightmare escalates to a global level? Gi-hun, fueled by guilt and revenge, infiltrates the dark organization, only to discover that the games are not confined to Korea. They are a worldwide phenomenon. Players from different countries are forced into horrifying tournaments inspired by their own childhood games, creating a deadly clash of cultures. Meanwhile, cracks begin to form within the organization. The frontman's loyalty wavers, but his rebellion triggers the rise of an even more ruthless leader, who tightens control. As Gi-hun uncovers the sinister motives behind the games, an elaborate experiment to exploit human greed and morality, he faces impossible choices. Will he sacrifice more lives to expose the truth, or will the games evolve into something even deadlier? With shocking alliances, brutal betrayals, and the constant question of survival, the future of Squid Game promises a darker, more twisted story. What do you think? Could this be the end of the games, or just the beginning of something far more dangerous?
VIPs become the players. In previous seasons, the VIPs were seen as untouchable elites who placed bets on the contestants' lives. But what if the tables turned? What if they were forced to play their own twisted game? In this one-hour episode, we explore a scenario where a rival faction forces the VIPs into the very nightmare they created: the capture. The episode opens in a luxurious private island mansion where several VIPs are gathered for a secret meeting. They're laughing, drinking, and casually discussing the next Squid Game tournament when suddenly the lights flicker and cut out. A masked figure appears on a large screen, speaking in a deep, distorted voice. You've watched. You've bet. You've killed. Now it's your turn to play. Before the VIPs can react, armed men storm the room, tranquilizing them one by one. When they wake up, they're dressed in green tracksuits, standing in a white, sterile-looking game arena, just like the regular contestants. A new frontman appears, wearing a black metallic mask, welcoming them. Welcome VIPs to a special edition of Squid Game. This time, you are the entertainment. The first game, the reverse hunt. Instead of a traditional game, the VIPs are given a brutal twist. They are placed in a massive dark maze with hunters wearing red jumpsuits. The only rule? Survive for 10 minutes without getting caught. The twist? The hunters are their former bodyguards, now turned against them. The VIPs, once arrogant and untouchable, are now running for their lives. The audience watches as they betray each other, sacrificing weaker members to buy themselves time. One particularly cruel VIP, who once laughed at players' deaths, shoves another into a trap, causing them to be eliminated. However, he soon meets his own fate when a hidden blade slices through the darkness. The second game. The Money Pit. Survivors are taken to the next challenge, a large glass vault filled with stacks of cash. The rules are simple. They must pick up as much money as they can and place it in a box at the end of the room. However, hidden under some cash piles are pressure-activated landmines. If they step on the wrong one, they explode instantly. The greed of the VIPs overtakes them. Some try to steal money from others, but one wrong step leads to deadly consequences. By the end, only 3 VIPs remain. The big twist. As the last survivors celebrate making it through, the masked leader announces, "Congratulations, you now have 2 choices. Take the money and walk away, or press this button and free all future contestants." The survivors hesitate. The button is just within reach, but pressing it would mean ending the Squid Games forever. One VIP, feeling guilt for the first time, reaches for the button, only to be shot in the head by another. The remaining VIP sneers and grabs the money, but the moment he does, gas fills the room. Cut to black. A final voiceover from the masked figure. Some people will never change. To be continued. In Squid Game Season 3, the narrative takes an even darker and more intense turn, immersing audiences in a chilling and psychologically thrilling experience that pushes the boundaries of human morality, survival instincts, and the consequences of unchecked power. As Gi-hun, the survivor from the first season, becomes increasingly obsessed with dismantling the sinister organization behind the deadly game. driven by the haunting memories of his fallen comrades and the emotional burden of witnessing the brutal deaths of those who sought a second chance at life. And as he embarks on a relentless mission to expose the game's creators and end their reign of terror, he discovers that the Squid Game has evolved into a global phenomenon, now operating in different regions with culturally adapted games and a more technologically advanced infrastructure that makes it nearly impossible to track or dismantle, leading Gi-hun to form an underground resistance comprised of former contestants who share his trauma and desire for justice, including an ex-soldier from Eastern Europe, a brilliant hacker from Southeast Asia, and a former game master who defected after witnessing the horrors inflicted on innocent people. And together, they infiltrate the organization's ranks, uncovering a shocking truth that the games are now being live-streamed on the dark web, attracting wealthy bidders who gamble on the fates of the players and manipulate the outcomes for their own twisted entertainment. And as Gi-hun and his team race against time to stop the next round of games, they find themselves trapped in a new, more brutal version of the competition known as the Infinity Trials, where contestants are forced to endure not only physical challenges, but also psychological warfare, facing simulations of their worst fears and memories, designed to break their spirits and manipulate their minds. And in this twisted arena, the players must form alliances, betray their own instincts, and confront their past traumas to survive, while Gi-hun fights to protect innocent lives and expose the truth to the world. And as the tension escalates, the game's creator, revealed to be a former winner who chose to embrace the darkness of the system, taunts Gi-hun with the revelation that even if the physical game is dismantled, the psychological scars and societal corruption it has spawned will continue to plague humanity, leaving Gi-hun to grapple with the moral dilemma of sacrificing his own life to destroy the system or finding a way to redeem the players and offer them a chance at redemption. And in a heart-stopping climax, Gi-hun's team orchestrates a global broadcast that exposes the games to the public, leading to mass outrage and the intervention of international authorities. But as the organization crumbles, Gi-hun is forced to make the ultimate sacrifice, confronting the game master in a final showdown that leaves both men gravely wounded. And while Gi-hun's actions inspire a global movement to support the victims and prevent future games, the final scene hints at a chilling possibility: that the true masterminds behind the Squid Game remain hidden, preparing to launch an even more insidious version of the competition, leaving audiences on edge and eager for the next chapter in this gripping, emotionally charged, and socially relevant saga that keeps viewers hooked with its unpredictable twists, intense character development, and thought-provoking commentary on human nature and the consequences of greed and desperation.
After the shocking finale of Squid Game Season 2, fans are left wondering, what's next? With Gi-hun refusing to board the plane, his mission to take down the mysterious organization has only begun. But what if the game is no longer limited to South Korea? What if the nightmare expands to a global scale? In Squid Game Season 3, the stakes are higher, the games are deadlier, and the mystery behind the VIPs is finally unraveled. Buckle up, because this season might just be the most intense yet. Season 3 could reveal a chilling truth. South Korea was just one of many locations. Gi-hun's investigation leads him to uncover underground Squid Games happening worldwide, each with its own horrifying twists based on local childhood games. Imagine a deadly version of Tag in Japan, Red Rover in America, or Kabaddi in India, all turned into brutal survival challenges. The organization has evolved, and now they are orchestrating an international tournament where past winners from different countries must compete against each other in one final, ultimate game. Determined to bring down the organization, Gi-hun infiltrates the games from within. But this time, he's not alone. He secretly recruits former players and even some insiders who have grown tired of the system. Their goal? Expose the VIPs and destroy the games from the inside. But there's a catch. If they fail, they'll be forced to compete in the deadliest version of the games yet. The biggest twist of Season 3? The frontman is no longer the most powerful figure. A new leader emerges, more ruthless, more strategic, and completely unpredictable. This shadowy figure has been controlling the games from behind the scenes, and their ultimate goal is finally revealed. The frontman, now questioning his loyalty, is caught between his past as a survivor and his present as a mastermind. Will he betray the organization and help Gi-hun, or will he remain trapped in the system? Season 3's finale could be the most brutal yet. Picture this. The last remaining players from each country are brought together in a final showdown. Only one will survive. But Gi-hun has a plan. If he can turn the players against the VIPs, maybe, just maybe, they can end the games once and for all. But at what cost? Will Gi-hun sacrifice himself? Or will the games evolve into something even darker? Just when we think the nightmare is over, Season 3 could end with a shocking revelation. The games were never about money, but something much more sinister. A final shot of a hidden laboratory, a secret experiment, or a mysterious government link could change everything we thought we knew. Squid Game Season 3 has the potential to be the most thrilling, emotional, and intense season yet. With Gi-hun leading a rebellion, international games creating new high-stakes drama, and shocking twists waiting at every turn, fans will be left at the edge of their seats. But one question remains. Can the games ever truly be stopped? What do you think? Could this be the perfect storyline for Squid Game Season 3? Let's discuss.
Ending Season 2 hinted that Gi-hun, played by Lee Jung-jae, would no longer be a mere participant but a man seeking justice. This episode focuses on his dangerous mission to infiltrate and destroy the Squid Game organization. A new identity. The episode opens with Gi-hun, now living under a new alias, entering the underworld of the Squid Game. He manages to disguise himself as a staff member using information he obtained from the frontman's files. His goal is clear: to gather intelligence, expose the masterminds, and put an end to the deadly game. The inner workings of the organization. Gi-hun gains access to a secret chamber where high-ranking staff members discuss new game designs. He discovers a list of past winners, many of whom mysteriously disappeared. His investigation leads to a shocking revelation. The Squid Game is not just a Korean operation, but a global one. A deadly game within the game. Just as Gi-hun is about to send critical information to an outside contact, he is caught and forced into a terrifying challenge, disguised as a staff evaluation. This game is a psychological battle, where guards must prove their loyalty by surviving a brutal task. Gi-hun must now play the game while protecting his cover. A cliffhanger ending. As the episode nears its end, Gi-hun is forced to execute a fellow staff member to prove his loyalty. Just when it seems like he has no choice, a mysterious masked figure saves him and whispers, "You're not alone in this fight." Squid Game Season 3, the narrative escalates to unprecedented levels of suspense, drama, and emotional intensity, captivating audiences worldwide with its gripping storyline, psychological depth, and shocking twists. As Gi-hun, the protagonist from the original season, becomes increasingly tormented by the memories of his fellow players who perished in the deadly games and the haunting betrayal of his childhood friend, Cho Sang-woo, leading him to embark on a relentless mission to dismantle the sinister organization behind the Squid Game, which has now expanded into a global underground network with branches operating in different countries, each hosting culturally adapted versions of the game that prey on the desperation of the poor and marginalized. And as Gi-hun allies with former contestants, whistleblowers, and rogue insiders who have turned against the organization, including a South American ex-soldier, an Eastern European hacker, and a Southeast Asian con artist, they form an underground resistance with the goal of exposing the game's architects and freeing the victims trapped in its vicious cycle. But as they infiltrate the network, they discover that the games have evolved into a more sinister and technologically advanced version called the Infinity Arena, where contestants are not only subjected to brutal physical challenges, but also psychological warfare through virtual reality simulations that force them to relive their deepest fears and traumas, breaking their spirits and minds while elite viewers from the dark web place bets on their survival. And Gi-hun, burdened by his guilt and driven by a sense of justice, enters the arena himself to gain the trust of the players and lead an uprising from within, while the resistance team on the outside works to hack into the system and broadcast the truth to the world. And as the games progress, Gi-hun forms alliances with players who have lost everything, including a grieving mother seeking revenge for her son's death in a previous game, a former intelligence agent who was blackmailed into participating, and a young prodigy whose genius is exploited for the amusement of the elite, and together, they defy the game's rules and begin sabotaging the deadly trials from within, sparking chaos and rebellion among the contestants, while the resistance team exposes the identities of the game masters and their connections to corrupt politicians, corporate magnates, and criminal syndicates, leading to international outrage and a global crackdown on the organization. But as the walls of the Infinity Arena crumble and the players escape, Gi-hun confronts the mastermind behind the Squid Game, who is revealed to be a former winner who embraced the system's darkness and now seeks to push humanity to its limits to reveal their true nature. And in a heart-stopping showdown, Gi-hun sacrifices himself to end the mastermind's reign and destroy the core of the operation. But his actions inspire a worldwide movement to support the survivors and dismantle similar death games across the globe. And as the world begins to heal, the final scene teases the emergence of a new, more insidious version of the game, suggesting that the battle against human greed and exploitation is far from over, leaving audiences on edge and eager for future installments. While the emotional depth, social commentary, and intense action of Season 3 solidify Squid Game as one of the most compelling and thought-provoking series of the decade. In Squid Game Season 3, the series escalates to unprecedented heights, immersing audiences in an intense and emotionally charged narrative that delves deeper into human nature, morality, and the consequences of unchecked greed, while captivating viewers with high-stakes action, psychological tension, and heart-wrenching character arcs that keep them glued to the screen for the entire duration. Gi-hun, the protagonist from the first season, is haunted by the memories of the brutal games and the deaths of his fellow contestants, including his childhood friend, Cho Sang-woo. Driven by guilt and a burning desire for justice, Gi-hun sets out on a mission to dismantle the sinister organization behind the deadly competition, which has now expanded globally, adapting to different cultures and exploiting the vulnerable and desperate. As Gi-hun infiltrates the underground network, he discovers that the Squid Game has evolved into a technologically advanced, highly secretive operation known as the Infinity Arena, where contestants are subjected not only to physically grueling challenges, but also to psychologically tormenting virtual reality simulations that force them to relive their deepest fears and traumas. To gain the trust of the players and uncover the masterminds behind the operation, Gi-hun enters the games once more, forming alliances with a diverse group of participants, including a former intelligence agent who was blackmailed into playing, a grieving mother seeking justice for her son's death in a previous game, and a brilliant hacker who aims to expose the dark web streaming platform that broadcasts the games to elite viewers who place bets on the contestants' lives. Meanwhile, a resistance movement led by former players and whistleblowers works to hack into the game's system and reveal the identities of the powerful figures financing the operation. As the games progress, Gi-hun and his allies begin to sabotage the trials from within, sparking chaos and rebellion among the contestants, while the resistance team exposes the game masters and their ties to corrupt politicians, corporate magnates, and criminal syndicates. The global outcry that follows puts immense pressure on international authorities to intervene, leading to raids on game facilities and the arrest of key figures. However, the true mastermind behind the Squid Game is revealed to be a former winner who embraced the darkness of the system and seeks to push humanity to its limits to expose their true nature. In a climactic showdown, Gi-hun confronts the mastermind and sacrifices himself to destroy the core of the operation, ensuring that no more lives will be lost to the brutal games. His actions inspire a worldwide movement to support survivors and prevent the emergence of similar death games. Yet, in a chilling final twist, a new and more insidious version of the Squid Game begins to emerge in the shadows, hinting that the battle against greed, exploitation, and human depravity is far from over, leaving audiences on edge and eagerly anticipating the next chapter in this gripping, socially relevant, and emotionally resonant series. The blend of intense action, complex character development, and thought-provoking social commentary ensures that Squid Game Season 3 becomes one of the most compelling and talked-about installments in television history, solidifying its place as a cultural phenomenon that transcends borders and captivates audiences worldwide. In Squid Game Season 3, the narrative takes a darker and more intense turn, captivating audiences with psychological depth and thrilling suspense as Gi-hun embarks on a relentless mission to dismantle the sinister organization behind the deadly games. Driven by guilt and the haunting memories of his fallen comrades, Gi-hun infiltrates the underground network responsible for orchestrating the Squid Game, which has now evolved into an even more brutal and technologically advanced operation known as the Eternal Arena. This new version spans multiple countries, adapting to local cultures and exploiting the desperation of the marginalized. Gi-hun allies with former contestants, whistleblowers, and rogue insiders, including a disillusioned game designer who seeks redemption, a skilled hacker who lost a loved one to the games, and an ex-Special Forces soldier who barely survived the previous season. Together, they form a covert resistance with the goal of exposing the game's masterminds and freeing the trapped participants. However, the stakes are higher than ever as the games have incorporated augmented reality and psychological manipulation, forcing players to confront their deepest fears and moral dilemmas in a series of increasingly complex and deadly challenges. As Gi-hun navigates the treacherous trials, he forms bonds with new players who share tragic backstories and are willing to risk everything for freedom. In Squid Game Season 3, the story dives deeper into the dark underbelly of the organization that orchestrates the deadly games, building upon the emotional intensity and suspense that captivated audiences in previous seasons. Gi-hun, the protagonist who survived the first game, becomes obsessed with dismantling the organization after discovering that the games have not only persisted, but have expanded globally. This time, the games are more sophisticated and brutal, blending psychological warfare with high-stakes physical challenges. The season opens with Gi-hun infiltrating the organization through an underground network of whistleblowers and former guards who have turned against the system. As he delves deeper, he uncovers that the games are now hosted in multiple countries, each with unique cultural twists on childhood games that reflect the social and economic struggles of those regions. The stakes are higher, and the technology more advanced, including AI-driven surveillance and augmented reality simulations that manipulate the player's perceptions and emotions. Gi-hun allies with a diverse group of rebels, including a former military strategist, a tech genius who lost her brother in the games, and a journalist determined to expose the truth. Together, they aim to sabotage the games from within, while gathering evidence to bring the organization's powerful backers to justice. The emotional core of the season lies in the stories of the new contestants, who are drawn from all walks of life. A single mother fighting for her child's future, a disgraced doctor seeking redemption, and a young immigrant trying to save his family from deportation. These characters form bonds and betray each other in desperate attempts to survive, mirroring the harsh realities of class struggle and human greed. The games themselves are more elaborate and deadly, with one challenge set in a surreal, shifting labyrinth that forces players to confront their darkest memories, and another that involves a high-speed chase through a virtual cityscape where wrong choices lead to instant death. Meanwhile, the organization's leaders, known as the Architects, manipulate the games for the entertainment of the global elite, who wager fortunes on the outcomes. As Gi-hun's team disrupts the games and exposes the live streams to the public, international outrage erupts, leading to mass protests and political pressure on law enforcement to act. However, the organization's deep-rooted influence and wealth allow them to evade capture and relocate their operations. In a heart-wrenching climax, Gi-hun sacrifices himself to ensure the escape of the remaining players and broadcasts the final moments of the games to the world. His death becomes a symbol of resistance, inspiring global movements against exploitation and inequality. Yet, in a chilling final scene, a new group of contestants is seen being transported to an undisclosed location, suggesting that the cycle of violence and greed is far from over. The season ends with a haunting message. As long as there is desperation and inequality in the world, the games will continue. With its gripping narrative, intense character development, and thought-provoking social commentary, Squid Game Season 3 keeps audiences on edge, sparking conversations about human nature, morality, and the consequences of unchecked power. In Squid Game Season 3, the story plunges into an even more sinister and gripping narrative, blending psychological depth and thrilling suspense to captivate audiences worldwide. Gi-hun, the previous winner, driven by guilt and a burning desire for justice, embarks on a covert mission to dismantle the organization behind the deadly games. This time, the games have expanded globally, with different regions hosting their own brutal versions, each reflecting the cultural and societal struggles of the players. Gi-hun, with the help of allies he gathers along the way, including a former guard who defected and a journalist investigating the dark web broadcasts of the games, infiltrates a new underground facility where the next round is set to begin. The facility, hidden in an abandoned industrial complex, hosts players from diverse backgrounds, including war veterans, political dissidents, and those burdened by insurmountable debt, all lured in by the promise of a life-changing prize. The first challenge is a deadly version of musical chairs, where players must navigate a maze filled with traps and reach the limited safe zones before the music stops. This game sets the tone for the season, showcasing the psychological manipulation and physical brutality that define the competition. As Gi-hun blends in with the players, he uncovers that the games are now being controlled by a secret council of global elites who wager on the outcomes and orchestrate the events for entertainment. In Squid Game Season 3, the narrative takes a darker and more intricate turn, delving into the roots of the deadly competition and exploring the psychological torment that drives both the contestants and the enigmatic masterminds behind the operation. Seong Gi-hun, the lone survivor of the original game, is now driven by vengeance and justice, determined to dismantle the shadowy organization from within. His mission begins when he discovers that the games have expanded beyond South Korea, spreading to various countries and adapting to local traditions and cultures. These new iterations of the games are even more brutal, incorporating advanced technology, mind games, and social manipulation to push contestants to their limits. Gi-hun allies with a network of former contestants and whistleblowers who have managed to escape the games, including a former game designer who provides insider knowledge on the organization's structure and tactics. The season opens with Gi-hun infiltrating one of the underground facilities hosting a new round of games, where he encounters a diverse cast of players, each with their own haunting backstories and motivations for participating. Among them is a grieving mother seeking revenge for her son's death in a previous game, a hacker who aims to expose the organization's dark web operations, and a former soldier who sees the game as his only chance at redemption. The first game, a twisted version of Capture the Flag, takes place in a massive, ever-changing maze where players must outwit robotic guards and avoid deadly traps. The psychological tension escalates as alliances form and betrayals unfold, forcing Gi-hun to confront his own moral compass and the consequences of his actions. Meanwhile, outside the game, Gi-hun's allies work to disrupt the live-streamed broadcasts that cater to the ultra-rich elites betting on the contestants' fates. They hack into the encrypted servers and leak footage to the public, sparking global outrage and protests against the secretive organization. However, the leaders of the game, known as the Architects, respond with brutal crackdowns and countermeasures, making it increasingly difficult for Gi-hun and his team to stay one step ahead. In a chilling twist, Gi-hun discovers that one of the Architects is a former winner who, after surviving the games, was offered a position of power within the organization. This character, tormented by their past but trapped in a cycle of violence and control, becomes Gi-hun's primary antagonist. Their confrontations are both physical and psychological, culminating in a high-stakes showdown where Gi-hun must choose between personal revenge and the greater mission of exposing the truth. As the season progresses, the games become more surreal and symbolic, reflecting the internal struggles of the contestants and the societal issues that led them to participate. One game involves crossing a collapsing glass bridge while confronting hallucinations of past failures, while another forces players to make moral choices that directly impact the lives of their loved ones. The emotional depth and complexity of these challenges keep the audience on edge as viewers become emotionally invested in the fates of the characters. In the final episode, Gi-hun successfully triggers a massive explosion that destroys the game's central hub, but at the cost of his own life. His sacrifice becomes a symbol of resistance, inspiring global uprisings against the organization's backers and leading to widespread investigations and arrests. However, in a haunting post-credits scene, a new group of contestants is seen boarding a cargo ship bound for an unknown location, hinting that the organization's influence extends far beyond what was previously known. With its intense storytelling, morally complex characters, and thought-provoking commentary on human nature and social inequality. Squid Game. Season 3 not only hooks viewers from start to finish, but also leaves a lasting impact on the audience, sparking debates and discussions about justice, survival, and the dark side of human greed. Squid Game Season 3, the stakes are higher than ever as Gi-hun, now fully aware of the horrific reality behind the games, embarks on a relentless mission to dismantle the organization from within. But little does he know that the games have evolved beyond anything he could have imagined. Spanning across multiple countries, incorporating cutting-edge AI surveillance, psychological warfare, and a new generation of participants who are more desperate and ruthless than ever before. The season begins with Gi-hun receiving a cryptic message, a black invitation card with a blood-red symbol, leading him to a secret underground facility where he is forced to make an impossible choice. Continue his mission as a spy inside the games or risk the lives of those he cares about. And as he reluctantly re-enters the brutal world of Squid Game, he finds himself among a mix of past survivors, new contestants, and hidden operatives from various intelligence agencies trying to infiltrate the organization. All while the mysterious new mastermind, Il-nam's son, watches from the shadows, determined to push the games to new extremes with a sadistic twist. This time, the games are designed not just to test physical endurance, but to completely break the human mind, introducing challenges like the puppet's choice, where players must decide whether to save or sacrifice their closest allies, the infinite staircase, a psychological maze that warps reality and forces players into paranoia-driven eliminations, and the silent room, where contestants must endure extreme conditions without making a sound or risk instant execution. And as Gi-hun forms uneasy alliances and navigates the blood-soaked games, he begins to unravel a deeper conspiracy. The Squid Games are no longer just entertainment for the ultra-rich, but a grand social experiment designed to manipulate global populations, control economies, and engineer human obedience through fear, with each game being secretly broadcasted to a hidden elite who bet not just on survival, but on how far human morality can be stretched before it shatters, leading to a shocking mid-season twist where Gi-hun discovers that the ultimate prize is not money, but power. The winner is given the chance to become part of the ruling class or die knowing the full truth, and as the games reach their deadly climax, Gi-hun faces a final challenge unlike any before. The Game Master's Dilemma, where he is given the power to either destroy the games forever or become its new leader. But just as he prepares to make his decision, a masked figure appears, revealing themselves as a familiar face from his past, sending the season spiraling into a jaw-dropping cliffhanger that will leave audiences questioning everything they thought they knew about the Squid Games, human nature, and the terrifying reality of a world where survival itself has become the ultimate currency. In Squid Game Season 3, the brutality of the games takes a terrifying turn. Not just testing physical survival, but completely dismantling the human mind in a way never seen before. As Gi-hun, driven by revenge, infiltrates the organization only to realize he has walked into something far beyond his comprehension. A game that does not just play with life and death, but with reality itself. As he is transported to a hidden facility known only as the White Room, a sterile, endless labyrinth where contestants are thrown into a series of games designed not just to eliminate, but to erase their sense of self. With the first challenge, the Room of Echoes, forcing players into a space where their own voices turn against them, whispering secrets they never told anyone, manipulating their minds into believing their thoughts are not their own. While another game, The Vanishing Point, causes players to slowly disappear from the memories of those around them, making their existence meaningless. A terrifying realization as friends turn into strangers, and alliances crumble into paranoia, pushing contestants to either cling to their sanity or embrace the madness. But the horror escalates when the contestants are separated and wake up in different versions of their past lives, trapped in perfect recreations of moments they regret the most. But this time, with a horrifying twist. They must make different choices, and if they fail to change their fate, they will be erased from the game entirely, leading to heart-wrenching moments where some players refuse to play, choosing to disappear rather than face their past, and others become obsessed with escaping, only to realize they are trapped in a loop, living their worst memories over and over until their minds shatter completely. And Gi-hun himself begins to lose grip on what's real, as he is forced to play the marionettes game, where a mysterious masked figure controls his body, making him perform violent actions against his will, testing whether he truly has free will or is just another pawn in the system. And as he fights against the unseen forces manipulating him, he starts to see things. Glitches in reality, flickering lights, whispers from people who should be dead, making him suspect that the Squid Game is not just a physical event, but something far more sinister. A psychological experiment that has been running for decades, perhaps even centuries, rewriting the minds of its players so completely that some of them never left at all. They just became part of the system, their identities erased, their memories rewritten, turned into new game masters, enforcers, or even VIPs, all without realizing who they once were. And the most terrifying part? Gi-hun starts recognizing some of the masked guards, not as strangers, but as past players he met before, their faces familiar yet blank, devoid of any memory of their past, making him question whether he himself was ever truly free, or if he has already lost the game without realizing it, leading to the final, most mind-shattering twist. The moment he finally reaches what he believes is the exit, a bright doorway at the end of the endless white corridors, only to step through and find himself back at the very beginning, waking up in the dormitory once again, as if nothing had ever happened, as if the entire season was just another layer of the game, leaving both Gi-hun and the audience in absolute horrified disbelief, as the screen cuts to black with only the sound of distant, distorted laughter, ensuring that Squid Game Season 3 delivers one of the most psychologically disturbing and unpredictable finales in television history, leaving fans questioning not just the show, but reality itself. As Squid Game Season 3 begins, the stakes have never been higher, and the nightmare has never felt more inescapable. As the games evolve into something beyond just survival, they become a war on reality itself, where contestants are no longer just fighting for their lives, but for their very sanity. As Gi-hun, after narrowly escaping the system in Season 2, is dragged back in through a trap far more insidious than before. A game that doesn't just test strength or intelligence, but completely dismantles the human mind, as he wakes up not in a traditional Squid Game dormitory, but in a blank, sterile room where the walls shift, the ceiling disappears, and time no longer feels linear, with contestants experiencing moments from their past, present, and even possible futures, all merging into a terrifying blur that makes them question if they have ever left the games at all. And as players struggle to hold on to their identities, they are introduced to a horrifying new twist. This time, some contestants are not real, or at least they may not be, as the game has begun introducing artificial players, duplicates of real people, clones or projections designed to test the limits of human perception, meaning that any alliance could be fake. Any friend could be nothing more than an illusion, causing paranoia to spread like wildfire. And just when it seems like the game couldn't get any worse, a global revelation shatters everything. The Squid Game is no longer just in Korea. It has expanded worldwide, with simultaneous games taking place in multiple countries, each one with its own horrifying version of childhood challenges turned deadly, and the contestants are forced to compete not just against each other, but against the winners of these other arenas, creating a brutal, high-stakes international showdown where the final survivors from different Squid Games must face off in a grand final tournament. An event so massive, so intricately planned, that it is broadcast to the highest ranks of global elites. A secret underground world where billionaires, politicians, and power-hungry figures bet on contestants like racehorses, influencing outcomes, rigging games, and even altering rules mid-challenge to create the ultimate spectacle, making it clear that the games were never just about entertainment, but about control, power, and a secret economy built on human desperation. But as Gi-hun fights his way through this escalating nightmare, he starts uncovering the true horror. There is no singular mastermind behind the Squid Game, no single villain to defeat, because the system has grown into something much more dangerous. A self-sustaining machine, one that feeds on human suffering, constantly adapting, constantly evolving, making it impossible to dismantle because the people funding it are also the people who run the world, and the only way to escape is not just to win, but to become part of the system itself, leading to the ultimate moral dilemma. As contestants are given the chance to take control, to step into the shoes of the VIPs, to become the very thing they hate, and some do. Some former players, broken by the experience, decide that survival isn't enough, that if they can't destroy the game, they must own it, manipulate it, rise through its ranks, creating a chilling new faction within the system, a resistance that doesn't seek to end the Squid Game, but to rewrite its rules. And as Gi-hun reaches the final challenge, he is confronted with the most devastating twist yet. This entire season, every challenge, every betrayal, every horrifying moment of suffering has been leading up to one choice. He can end the game for himself, walk away, survive. But in doing so, the games will continue forever, or he can take the final seat, take control of the system, and rewrite it from the inside, but at the cost of his own humanity. And as the screen fades to black, the audience is left in horrifying suspense, watching as Gi-hun makes his final decision, setting up Squid Game Season 4 in a way that will leave viewers questioning everything, proving once and for all that the game never truly ends. It only changes its players. As Squid Game Season 3 begins, the stakes have never been higher. What was once a Korean survival game for the desperate and indebted has now transformed into a global death tournament, orchestrated by the richest and most powerful people on the planet. And at the center of it all is Gi-hun, who, after vowing to take down the organization, finds himself trapped once again, this time in a version of the game that is far more terrifying than anything he has faced before. And as he wakes up inside the arena, he realizes that the rules have changed. The environment is no longer a predictable set of games, but a living, breathing nightmare designed to break the human mind. And as the new contestants look around in confusion, they are greeted by a masked figure. The Architect, a mysterious new leader who has replaced the frontman, revealing that the Squid Game has now expanded beyond Korea, with versions running in secret locations across the world. And this season's challenge is the Ultimate Tournament, a brutal championship where past winners from different Squid Games are forced to compete against each other, proving once and for all who the ultimate survivor is. And as Gi-hun struggles to understand what's happening, he discovers that some of the contestants are not strangers. They are past winners who were promised freedom but were instead forced back into the game, revealing the horrifying truth that there is no real escape from Squid Game, only a never-ending cycle. And as the first challenge begins, the contestants realize that these new games are designed not only to eliminate players, but to erase their sense of reality. With the first challenge being a horrifying game where players must navigate a shifting maze that constantly changes its layout, causing players to become disoriented, lost, and eventually eliminated in the most disturbing ways possible. And as Gi-hun pushes forward, he starts noticing glitches in the game, moments where time seems to rewind or repeat, leading him to suspect that the entire environment is being manipulated by an advanced AI. And just when he thinks he has figured it out, a shocking twist is revealed. Some of the players are not real, but carefully crafted simulations designed to make the real contestants question their sanity. And as paranoia sets in, alliances are formed, betrayals unfold, and the psychological horror deepens, with contestants being forced to play games that involve erasing their own memories, rewriting their pasts, and ultimately deciding whether they want to continue existing at all. And the deeper Gi-hun goes, the more he realizes that the true purpose of Squid Game is not entertainment, but a grand experiment in human control, testing how far people are willing to go when their perception of reality is shattered. And in the final, most mind-bending twist, Gi-hun comes face to face with his past self, a version of him that had already played the game before but had his memories erased, revealing that this is not his first time here, but his third, and that he had always chosen to forget and start over rather than face the truth. And as the final seconds tick down, he is given one last choice: to break the cycle and destroy the game, or to submit once again and lose himself forever, leaving the audience in shock, horror, and anticipation for what comes next. proving once and for all that Squid Game was never just a game. It was a trap, and no one ever truly escapes. Squid Game. Season 3 begins with a worldwide panic. Leaked footage of past games has surfaced on the dark web, exposing the existence of the deadly tournament to the public, causing a frenzy of speculation, denials, and secret cover-ups. But before authorities can act, the organization behind Squid Game goes underground, rebranding itself into an even more dangerous and technologically advanced version, now run by a new mastermind. The Architect, a faceless, nameless leader whose voice alone is enough to send shivers down the spine. And at the heart of the chaos is Gi-hun, who, after rejecting his flight to the US, has spent years tracking the organization, only to find himself ambushed, sedated, and waking up inside a game once again. But this time, it's different. This is not the Squid Game he once knew. This is the final tournament, where previous winners and the most dangerous players from different Squid Games worldwide are forced to compete in a last-man-standing deathmatch. A twisted competition where only the strongest, smartest, and most ruthless will survive. And as Gi-hun looks around, he realizes he is surrounded by former champions. People who have already endured hell, but now must do it all over again. Only this time, there are no teams, no alliances, only one survivor. And as the game begins, a terrifying revelation unfolds. This Squid Game is fully controlled by AI, with no human guards, no emotional frontman, just a cold, merciless system designed to make every decision as efficient, cruel, and inescapable as possible. And the first game sets the tone for the horrors to come. A hyper-realistic simulation where players are thrown into a city identical to their childhood hometowns, but with a deadly twist. Each of them is being hunted by a version of their younger self, a projection of their worst memories, childhood fears, and traumatic past, forcing them to either face their deepest regrets or be eliminated by their own history. And as Gi-hun barely survives this psychological torment, he realizes that the AI is not just running the game, it is learning from them, adapting each round to become even more personal, making each challenge a direct attack on their minds, their choices, and their will to survive. And the deeper they go, the worse it gets. One game forces players to erase their memories one by one, choosing which parts of their past to keep and which to sacrifice, only to realize at the end that those who erase too much forget why they are even playing, making them easy targets, while another game places them in a mirror maze where their reflections start talking back, revealing secrets they never told anyone, exposing their betrayals, fears, and sins, making them question whether they are still themselves or just puppets controlled by the AI. And the paranoia reaches its peak when players start disappearing without dying, leaving only a cryptic message behind. You never existed. Logically, and as Gi-hun fights his way through, he discovers the horrifying truth. The AI has not only been watching them, but has created perfect digital copies of every contestant, using their memories, habits, and emotions to build a virtual Squid Game running parallel to the real one. And in a final shocking twist, Gi-hun meets himself. A perfect AI replica, designed to replace him in the outside world if he loses. And the last game is the most disturbing of all. Only one Gi-hun can leave, meaning he must defeat his own clone. But as he fights, he realizes something terrifying. He doesn't know if he is the real Gi-hun or the AI version, because with every round, the game has been erasing and rewriting memories, blurring the lines between human and machine. And as the season ends, the final shot is of one Gi-hun stepping into the real world. But the audience is left wondering, did the real Gi-hun win? Or has Squid Game finally escaped into reality? Squid Game. Season 3 that keeps the audience hooked for hours, maximizes hype, and pushes the limits of storytelling requires an ultra-intense, psychological, and high-stakes narrative that keeps viewers glued to their screens, unable to look away, diving deeper into the darkest corners of human nature, morality, technology, and survival. And in this version, the Squid Game has evolved into something far beyond what anyone ever imagined. transforming into a global nightmare, where the game is no longer just a secret for the ultra-rich, but has now been exposed to the world, sending shockwaves through society, governments, and underground organizations. And as the season begins, Gi-hun is no longer a helpless contestant, but a man on a mission, fueled by the knowledge of the game's existence, seeking revenge against those who orchestrated it. But before he can act, he is captured once again, waking up inside a completely new version of the game, one that has been engineered to be impossible to escape, mentally destabilizing, and more horrifying than ever. Because unlike the previous seasons, this is not just a game of life and death. It is a game of identity, perception, and sanity, designed to test how far a human mind can be pushed before breaking completely. And as Gi-hun looks around, he notices something terrifying. This time, the contestants are not ordinary people. They are past winners, high-profile figures, and even soldiers, proving that this season's Squid Game is no longer about desperation, but entertainment for the powerful, who now bet on trained survivors, psychopaths, and the most resilient human beings on the planet, making this season a true gladiator-style deathmatch. And the first challenge begins in a twisted version of his childhood neighborhood, where players are forced to relive key moments of their past, but with a deadly twist. They must choose which memories to trust, as some are altered to make them question their reality. And those who fall for the deception are instantly eliminated, leading to a shocking realization. This game is being controlled by an advanced AI, one that has been studying human behavior, emotions, and fears, making the game unpredictable, adaptive, and unstoppable. And as the contestants struggle to survive, they realize that their biggest enemy is not just the game itself, but their own perception of what is real and what is not. And with each passing round, the AI manipulates the environment, creating fake contestants, illusions, and dreamlike sequences, making the players question whether they are still in the game or have already lost and are trapped in an endless loop. And one of the most terrifying games involves contestants being placed in a vast, endless white room where they are told they can leave at any time. But the catch is, they must find the real exit. And as they walk, they see doors, pathways, and shadows of their loved ones calling them. But every wrong choice leads to instant erasure from the game, as if they never existed. And the horror intensifies when Gi-hun sees a version of himself leaving through one of the doors, making him question if he is still himself or just another failed copy of who he once was. And as paranoia spreads, betrayals begin. Contestants start turning on each other, suspecting that some are not real but planted by the AI to break their spirits. And with each new game, the psychological torment escalates, reaching a point where contestants are forced to erase their own memories in order to proceed, leading to a devastating twist. Some players no longer remember why they are fighting, who they are, or if they ever existed before the game, creating a scenario where the final survivors are nothing more than shells of their former selves. And in a shocking final battle, Gi-hun faces a perfect AI replica of himself, designed to replace him in the real world, and the final challenge is simple. One of them must die. But the AI Gi-hun knows everything the real Gi-hun does, making it a battle of pure survival instinct. And as the fight unfolds, the AI reveals that this has been the plan all along, to create a version of Squid Game that never ends. One that keeps running with or without human oversight, where the winners are simply recycled into the system, erasing their past and making them part of the game forever. And in a heart-stopping final moment, Gi-hun makes a desperate choice, sacrificing himself to destroy the AI. But as the screen fades to black, the final shot reveals another Gi-hun waking up in the real world, smiling, leaving the audience questioning. Did the real Gi-hun win, or has the AI escaped into reality? Setting up what would be the most mind-blowing, discussion-driven, paranoia-inducing cliffhanger in television history, making Squid Game Season 3 the most terrifying, unforgettable, and binge-worthy season ever created, guaranteeing that fans will never stop talking about it. Squid Game Season 3, the narrative expands to an international scale, immersing viewers in an even darker and more complex world where desperation and greed collide in a deadly arena. Gi-hun, Now a man consumed by the trauma of his past and the loss of those he couldn't save, embarks on a relentless quest to dismantle the organization responsible for the games. However, the organization has evolved, spreading its operations to different parts of the world, each with its own twisted version of the deadly competition. Gi-hun infiltrates the European branch of the game, which takes place in an ancient, abandoned castle, where the psychological and physical torment of the players reaches new heights. The castle is filled with elaborate traps and sinister game designs that reflect medieval punishments, such as the Executioner's Path, where players must navigate a labyrinth filled with swinging blades and boiling tar pits while solving riddles to survive. The global reach of the games attracts a more diverse set of players, including political prisoners, debt-ridden citizens, and former military personnel, each driven by their own desperate circumstances. Gi-hun forms an uneasy alliance with a former intelligence officer who seeks redemption and a tech-savvy hacker who aims to expose the organization's dark web broadcasts. Meanwhile, a group of activists on the outside work tirelessly to track the game's location and disrupt its live stream, which is being viewed by elite billionaires who wager on the outcomes. One of the season's most harrowing games, The Puppeteer's Arena, forces players to control marionette versions of themselves through a deadly obstacle course, symbolizing the manipulation and control the organization holds over their lives. As the contestants form bonds and betray each other to survive, the emotional stakes intensify, making viewers deeply invested in their stories. Gi-hun's internal struggle between seeking justice and protecting innocent lives becomes a central theme, drawing audiences into his emotional journey. The frontman, revealed to be a former contestant who was coerced into leading the European branch, becomes a formidable antagonist, adding layers of complexity to the narrative. In a shocking twist, Gi-hun discovers that the true masterminds behind the global games are not a single entity, but a secret council of influential figures from around the world who manipulate the games to maintain power and control over society's most vulnerable. The final game, The Tower of Despair, challenges players to ascend a crumbling tower while confronting hallucinations of their deepest fears and regrets. Gi-hun's sacrifice to save a young refugee girl exposes the horrifying reality of the games to the world, leading to mass protests and international investigations. However, in a chilling post-credits scene, a new game is revealed to be starting in a remote location, hinting that the cycle of violence and greed is far from over. With its gripping storytelling, intense character development, and thought-provoking social commentary, Squid Game Season 3 captivates audiences, leaving them questioning the true nature of humanity and the price of survival. In Squid Game Season 3, the chilling and brutal world of the deadly games evolves into an even more sinister and globally expansive competition, drawing participants from different countries who are trapped in crushing financial despair and moral crises. Seong Gi-hun, still haunted by the events of the previous seasons and driven by a burning desire for justice, infiltrates the secretive organization that orchestrates these deadly contests. The new season unfolds on a desolate island that was once a military training ground, now transformed into a high-tech, labyrinthine arena filled with sophisticated surveillance systems and psychological traps designed to push contestants to their mental and physical limits. This season introduces international competitors, including war veterans, ex-convicts, and desperate citizens from impoverished regions, all manipulated into playing for their lives while wealthy elites bet on their survival. The first game, The Marionette's Dance, forces players to navigate a field of moving platforms while being controlled by strings attached to their limbs, symbolizing the loss of autonomy and the manipulation of the powerless by the rich. Gi-hun, disguised as a contestant, forms alliances with key players, including a former intelligence agent seeking redemption and a young hacker determined to expose the game's live stream on the dark web. The emotional depth intensifies as friendships form and betrayals unfold, revealing the raw desperation and moral dilemmas faced by the players. The frontman, who is revealed to be an unwilling pawn forced into his role after losing a loved one in a previous game, adds complexity to the narrative as he secretly aids Gi-hun while maintaining the facade of the ruthless enforcer. The second game, Echoes of the Past, immerses players in a virtual reality simulation of their most traumatic memories. forcing them to confront their darkest fears to progress. This psychological torment breaks the spirits of many, leading to intense emotional breakdowns and alliances of survival. Meanwhile, a global resistance movement, led by a journalist who uncovered the dark secrets of the organization, attempts to track the live broadcast and expose the identities of the game's elite sponsors. The third game, Labyrinth of Time, is a brutal race through a constantly shifting maze filled with deadly traps and hidden clues that reference ancient mythology and historical events, adding a layer of intellectual challenge to the physical brutality. As Gi-hun and his allies advance, they begin to uncover the true masterminds behind the games, an international syndicate of corrupt politicians, tech moguls, and crime lords who profit from human suffering. The final game, The Tower of Redemption, forces the remaining contestants to ascend a crumbling structure while battling their inner demons and the physical threats posed by the game's enforcers. Gi-hun's ultimate sacrifice to save a young orphaned girl exposes the truth to the world, leading to mass protests and government crackdowns on the organization. However, in a chilling post-credits scene, a new group of contestants is seen boarding a cargo ship bound for an unknown location, hinting that the cycle of violence and greed is far from over. With its gripping narrative, intense character development, and thought-provoking social commentary on inequality, human nature, and the corrupting power of wealth. Squid Game. Season 3 captivates audiences, leaving them questioning the true cost of survival and justice. In Squid Game Season 3, the sinister world of deadly competition reaches unprecedented heights as the underground organization expands its operations globally, luring desperate individuals from diverse backgrounds into a new, more complex series of challenges that push the limits of human endurance and morality. Gi-hun, having survived the horrors of the previous games and driven by a relentless desire to dismantle the organization, infiltrates the system with the help of an underground network, determined to expose the truth. This season's setting shifts to a massive abandoned industrial complex on a remote island, where advanced surveillance technology and psychological manipulation create an atmosphere of constant dread. The games are designed to test not only physical strength and strategy, but also emotional resilience and ethical choices, adding a layer of psychological complexity that keeps the audience on edge. The first game, The Mirror Maze, traps players in an ever-shifting labyrinth where they must outwit their own reflections while avoiding laser-triggered traps, symbolizing the internal battle between self-preservation and sacrifice. Gi-hun, disguised as a contestant, allies with a former soldier suffering from PTSD and a brilliant but morally conflicted scientist who once worked for the organization. In Squid Game Season 3, the stakes are elevated as the brutal clandestine competition expands to a global scale, drawing participants from different countries who are trapped in a desperate struggle for survival, wealth, and redemption. This season delves deeper into the psychology of the players, the dark motives of the organizers, and the global elite who fund the games for entertainment. Gi-hun, driven by vengeance and justice after discovering the true masterminds behind the games, allies with an underground resistance group that seeks to expose the organization. However, infiltrating the system is no easy feat, as the games have evolved to become more intricate and psychologically tormenting. The new setting is a massive abandoned military facility on a remote island, fortified with high-tech surveillance and deadly traps. The first game, The Tower of Echoes, forces players to navigate through a towering structure filled with mirrors and sound distortions, where wrong moves can trigger fatal traps. This game symbolizes self-reflection and the haunting memories that players must confront. Gi-hun, disguised as a participant, allies with a former intelligence agent and a cunning hacker who seek redemption for their past mistakes. Meanwhile, the frontman, struggling with the guilt of killing his brother, begins to question the morality of the organization, leading to internal conflict among the masked guards. The second game, The Shadows Chessboard, involves life-size chess pieces, where players must outthink their opponents while avoiding deadly lasers that activate with each move. This game tests strategy and collaboration, forcing alliances that can quickly turn into betrayals. Gi-hun's team narrowly survives, gaining the trust of other players who suspect the true nature of the games. The third game, The Marionette's Dance, subjects players to a deadly simulation where they control avatars in a virtual world, but each movement affects their real bodies. The psychological torment pushes players to the brink of insanity, blurring the line between reality and illusion. Gi-hun and his allies manage to hack the system and broadcast snippets of the games to the dark web, drawing the attention of activists and authorities worldwide. However, the organization retaliates with brutal force, eliminating anyone who attempts to interfere. The fourth game, The Timekeeper's Gauntlet, traps players in a giant clock tower filled with mechanical traps and riddles, where they must race against time to reach the top before the structure collapses. This game symbolizes the fleeting nature of life and the weight of past decisions. Gi-hun's team faces betrayal from within as fear and desperation consume the players. Despite the losses, Gi-hun and a few survivors manage to escape the tower, revealing the horrifying truth to the world. The final game, The Survivor's Reckoning, pits the remaining contestants against each other in a brutal arena where they must face holographic projections of their deepest fears and regrets. Gi-hun confronts the mastermind behind the games, a former political strategist who justifies the bloodshed as a means to control global population and maintain social order. In a climactic showdown, Gi-hun sacrifices himself to expose the organization's secrets to the world. The season ends with mass protests and global outrage as authorities dismantle the organization. However, a chilling post-credits scene reveals a new underground operation emerging in another part of the world, hinting that the cycle of violence and greed continues. With its intense storytelling, emotional depth, and social commentary on inequality and human nature, Squid Game Season 3 captivates audiences and leaves them questioning the price of justice and survival. In Squid Game Season 3, the series takes a darker and more intricate turn, delving deeper into the psychological torment and moral dilemmas faced by the participants, while introducing new, globally inspired games that test the very limits of human endurance, intellect, and emotional strength. Seong Gi-hun, now fully aware of the sinister organization behind the deadly games, embarks on a mission to dismantle it from within. However, the game has evolved, expanding to a secret, underground facility in an abandoned cityscape, where contestants from around the world are lured with promises of wealth and salvation from their dire circumstances. The season opens with a haunting new game called The Maze of Mirrors, where players must navigate a constantly shifting labyrinth filled with illusions, traps, and hidden adversaries. The game's design reflects the mental and emotional struggles of the contestants, forcing them to confront their deepest fears and memories while avoiding deadly pitfalls.